Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome back to another program on Eyewitness of the Eritrean Revolution on the occasion of Eritrean Euro Virtual Festival 2020. Tonight, I'm joined by one of the most renowned photojournalists to have visited the field during the Eritrean Revolution. Miss Jenny Matthews is in person, or Miss Jenny Matthews is the person behind the camera of many iconic photos that Eritreans across the globe recognize as documentation of the armed struggle for Eritrea. And we are very pleased to have Jenny here in our studio. Welcome, Jenny, to talk to us here at EmbassyMedia. Just let me start by asking you, who's Jenny Matthews? So your background.
Okay, I'm a photographer, photojournalist. I have worked a lot with different development agencies. I have travelled from Central America, Africa, Middle East, documenting above all the lives of women and the effects of war on daily life and on people's lives.
Yeah. So you've been a freelancer yourself.
Yes.
So yeah. And when and how you were first introduced to Eritrean armed struggle and its organizations in Europe?
Completely by accident, really. A friend was supposed to go on a press trip that was organised with the charity War on Want, and his dad was very ill, so I was asked to go instead. And yeah, it was a very lucky break for me, an amazing experience to be at the birth of a new country. Not that we knew it at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you visit Eritrea?
The first time was in 1988, so it was the spring and just after the big battle of Aberystwyth.
Oh, so you were during the Aberystwyth battle?
Yes.
And
at the end of it.
And how did you travel to Sahel? Like, did you went through Sudan?
We flew to Khartoum and then to Port Sudan, and then there were a convoy of like Volkswagen minibuses, but because there were two film crews, BBC, ITV, a journalist from The Independent, Alistair Campbell, who was a journalist from The Mirror, and me. I was lucky to be the only photographer.
Alistair Campbell became the spokesperson of Tony Blair later on.
He did. Yes, yeah.
And do you remember who was on the trip with you? Like you said, the BBC crew and Channel 4.
Yeah.
Do you remember some names?
Of those people? Oh, not off the top of my head, but they were news crews. You know, they're used to flying in, doing a 3-day visit.
So what was it like when you visit Sahel in Eritrea?
It was quite an arduous journey. I mean, fine until you hit the mountains. And I mean, it was an adventure, and we were so well looked after. I couldn't believe it that in the midst of nowhere, people cooked up aubergine pasta and just delicious food.
Yeah. I understand during your visit, you had you took a very famous photograph, like Alistair Campbell sitting next to President Isaias Afwerki. So what was that? I think you took the picture.
Yes, I don't know if it's famous, but anyway, we met your president in the bush, and I took a picture.
Yeah, and what was it like to see one of the leaders of the Eritrean Revolution at that time, and now the present.
Well, this is over 30 years ago,
Yeah.
so he was a much younger man.
Yeah.
I was a much younger photographer, and he was serious, and he was very welcoming, and actually I went with the news crews off to the front to see more action, and I was with Mrs. Kinnock, and who afterwards became a member of the House of Lords, but at the time she was the wife of the Labour leader. The people involved with development stayed behind, and we went off to the front.
Yeah. Well, in 1998 or 1988, Alphabet is one of the famous African war between the EPLF and the Derg at the time. I mean, the Eritrean revolution was very much ignored. So for you as a freelancer photographer, was it surprising to see that kind of organizations in the field in Sahel at the time?
Totally. I mean, many memories have never left me, like the underground hospital that you could organise. You hid your generator. People worked at night so that they wouldn't be bombed. There wasn't any noise. The production line of pharmaceuticals, the fact that, you can actually make drugs. You don't need to be dependent on importing, because getting anything to the field was extremely hazardous and a long, expensive journey. The self-sufficiency of the fighters was really impressive. The fact that everyone had car tyre, sandals, and young. Everyone, to me, just seemed like young people, but very committed, and not in an over-doctrinaire way, but they felt that they wanted to create an independent country to break away from Ethiopia, which at the time had the Derg, didn't it? So it had a very oppressive regime.
In 1988, during the war in Alphabet, Basil Davidson, he covered and he done a very, an interview from Sahel on radio BBC. Did you meet Basil Davidson at that time?
Just very briefly. We crossed paths in the airport. He was leaving as we arrived, and so he briefed us and was full of joy because he'd just witnessed this massive battle, and he was very optimistic that this meant the war had turned a corner and that victory was around the corner.
Well, as a photograph journalist, when you visited Eritrea, when you came back to London, how's the reactions of the people who were involved in media? Or, how did people react when you came back from Eritrea? And many people didn't know about EPLF at that time.
No, they didn't. I'm sure you realise it's always hard to get news about Africa into the media. Things have changed so much. So now with the internet, you can find everything. But at the time, we were very dependent on a few titles. The fact that there were 2 news crews with us meant that it was on the main news when we got back. I've had pictures used. I've got the cover of my book I did on women and war features a fighter.
Yeah. When did you publish this book?
In 2003 or 3.
Well, this is one of the very iconic and famous picture.
So I've been told.
Do you know that this is a very famous picture in Eritrea?
Yes, I do.
Women and war. Well, 30% of Eritrean women during the struggle for independence, part of the EPLF were women.
Yes.
And what does it mean to you when you see, the role of Eritrean women during the struggle and now building the
I was
nation?
totally overwhelmed. I could hardly speak to them. Apart from language, but just that feisty young women who just seem so strong and brave and getting on with it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jenny, this is also one of very famous pictures. So where was this?
This is just after the Battle of Alphabet, so it must be around there somewhere.
Yeah.
And we arrived, and the fighters were really exhausted and very graciously talked to us for a while. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, this is from your cover.
Well, I used it on the cover of the book because I wanted a strong woman. And for me, it says Women in War.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about Sicily.
Yes, I mean, for me, you know, it's very easy to glorify war, or you talk about a liberation struggle in glowing terms, but for me, it also damages people. And this was a fighter.
Again, a woman,
A woman fighter. This is her as a young woman, or a younger woman fighter. I took this, I think, in 2003. So afterwards, her partner was killed, and she'd lost sight in her eye, and she's in a wheelchair. You know, war is the effects of it carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. And young President Isaias.
Yes.
Where did you take this picture? Do you remember? And this was in Sahel too. You know?
It was at the camp where we were staying. So, yeah. And again, met him very briefly. But he was very gracious.
Yes, absolutely. And
energetic young man.
Very energetic. But then I can see a lot of picture. You're very focused on women of, you know, and fighters.
Yes,
and,
well,
you know,
as a photographer, as a woman, I'm
woman.
interested in the lives of women and how, you know, women transform and maintain society.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this was a program of Food for Work, I think, where people were building walls, stone walls, to stop soil erosion, because the trees were cut down during the war. The Ethiopians managed to obliterate a lot of forests.
Yeah, you know, again, here I can see, because Eritrea has 9 different ethnics and
different groups.
different groups. And then, where, do you remember this? Where was this?
I don't off the top of my head, but maybe around Solomuna. Possibly. But it's nomadic woman and a midwife visiting, checking up on child health.
You know what really, the EPLF, they were very, very unique on their health system. And did you notice that?
Oh, totally. I mean, there was the drug production, so you've got a picture of people making drugs.
This picture, pharmacy.
In a container.
Was this in Orota?
Yes.
In Orota.
Yes. So next to the hospital, you had a unit making basic medicines. I think there were 35 different medicines that they could make, which was just so impressive.
And you were telling me about this lady. Who is she?
She was a young student in one of the bush schools, but her family had actually come from America to take part in the struggle.
Wow.
So they were from the diaspora. That's nomadic family as well. And they were having literacy lessons.
Well, I mean, they are great, and I can see your skills and your touch on the photographs. I mean, this isn't easy to get that kind of clear. But then you were very, very focused on women of Eritrea. Do you know Gordian Trolla?
No.
He's a German filmmaker. And,
right.
He was very focused. He made very famous one. I mean, he made 4 major films during the struggle for independence in Eritrea. And one of it was Frauen der Welt, Women of the World.
Right.
And it's quite interesting on Eritrea revolution. And then I can see this is the Zero. This is the revolution school.
Exactly. Yes.
So what's your take on the education?
Oh
of
God,
EPLF?
it was amazing, because you see these thorn bushes, and the closer you get, then you realise that there are actually people there, and they were the camouflaged school, and fantastic, and often injured fighters would then become teachers.
Absolutely.
And it was amazing to see family life going on
And
so
again,
close
here I
to a
can
war.
see, yes, I can see here also, this is also part of education.
Yes, not the most successful photo because of the shadows of the thorns.
Absolutely. I mean, you were talking about the war in 1998, one of the largest scale war during the struggle for independence. Was this in Alphabet?
Yes, this is called a Stalin organ, I think.
Yes.
And it just fires these rockets, multiple rocket launcher, I suppose.
Yeah. Also in Alphabet, yeah?
That's the same one.
Same one, yeah. Wow. And this here?
Yeah, that's Alphabet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I remember this. This is a very famous, the General NATO during when the Derg was controlling Alphabet. This was their military headquarters.
Exactly. Yes. So it had been liberated.
The NATO,
Yes.
the NATO command.
Yes.
And this here?
Those goes with the women.
Yeah.
These are the men. They were relaxing after a battle and also listening to the World Service on the radio. Yeah.
Actually, the BBC was very famous during the struggle for independence. And then, if the fighters want to hear any international news, BBC was.
I mean, now with the internet, we take
It
communication
has changed totally now.
for granted. But at the time, the World Service was so important.
Yes, absolutely. And what was it?
This is guarding Ethiopian prisoners. This is again after the battle.
Yeah. Did you visit Ethiopian prisoners?
Yes.
And the EPLF is very, very, very unique on taking prisoners of war and
treating them well.
Treating very well. So
Yes.
what's your observations?
Oh, well, I think the Ethiopians were amazed and surprised, and they thought, they would be killed as soon as they were captured.
Yeah.
But no, in fact, they were having a football match, I think. Yes, so this is the Eritrean soldier guarding the football match. And this is a Rota hospital.
Rota hospital.
Yes,
Wow. Jenny, I am so.
Well, it's your history, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it for a very, very short time.
Yeah.
I mean, I know now people would have cell phones so they'd be able to take their own pictures, but at the time photography was much more difficult. Although the EPLF had a film unit, didn't they, and a photography unit.
Absolutely.
So there must be a lot of documentation.
Absolutely. I mean, I have very close friends, Christian Hilal, we are planning also to interview him, and Ruth Sumon, Hannah Sumon, they were part of that department. So yes, they have a lot of documentation. I mean, I've been asking you about the role of Eritrean women and the effect. And but what impact did the Eritrean Revolution have on you when you think about 32 years back?
I think because I'd also seen liberation struggles in Central America, in Nicaragua and El Salvador. So it was very heartening to see that there was a similar struggle happening in Africa. And I also been to Mozambique and Angola. So, it's not unique, but I think there are specific things to the Eritrean struggle that were very impressive, and I think they were doing it in much more difficult circumstances.
You visit Nicaragua, South America, Angola, Mozambique. What makes the Eritrean Revolution then different than those countries?
I think the fighters were very isolated. There wasn't a big city that was supporting them, whereas in El Salvador, it's a very small country, and there were always connections between the capital and the mountains, whereas in Eritrea, it felt that people really were, camping for years at a time.
When you came back with all the pictures that you had from Eritrea, did you have any exhibitions? I understand you have like another book published, but regarding exhibitions, your pictures.
Yes, I've had quite a big exhibition on women and war, of which Eritrea was part, and that's toured around Europe, America.
Jenny, after 1991, when Eritrea was independent, you visited again to Eritrea during the referendum. And for all Eritreans, 1993, the referendum is a unique and very important history. What was it like for you to visit Eritrea and to witness the referendum process?
Yes, I mean, that was unbelievable, the fact that you could fly in to Asmara, the fact that people who'd said, see you in Asmara in 88, and who we didn't believe, you thought, okay, in your dreams, but then suddenly here.
But why did you believe? That's a very interesting thing. I mean, 1998, or 1988 and then 91. Were you surprised when Eritrea was independent, or?
Yes, because, things can always go wrong, can't they? And especially because you're fighting a long way from any, major capital city, from the economy of the country carried on with the Derg during the war. And then suddenly it's over.
It's over. Yes. Let me take you back to the referendum. Where did you visit? Only the capital city, or did you visit it?
No, Massawa. This is where I have to look at a map.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the south, in the Sarai. Is it Sarai?
Sarai?
Yes. Somewhere down. Oh, Barentu.
Barentu. You visited Barentu.
Yes. And Agodat as well. Yes. So I know I travelled around quite a lot.
And how was the whole infrastructure organizations and the process of the Eritrean referendum in '93?
Yeah, really well organised. I mean, I suppose one of the advantages of having had a liberation struggle is that you succeed through organisation and through delegation and through comrades knowing what their duty is.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting. Well, Jenny, this interview, this conversation, one of our program, we're producing 73 program on the occasion of Eri Euro Festival 2020, and one of our programs, the Eyewitness of the Eritrean Revolution. And I know a lot of Eritreans are watching this program, and what message would you like to give to all Eritreans who are watching this program on the festival occasion?
Well, first of all, happy festival, and you have an amazing culture, and believe in it and propagate it. I have a really good friend who had a small restaurant, Lemlem.
Lemlem Kitchen?
Yes, Lemlem Kitchen. Magda.
I was talking to her yesterday.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, she's a really good ambassador for you.
Yes, definitely. She is a very good ambassador.
You have a fantastic cuisine, fantastic architecture, and a rich cultural heritage. And more people should know about it. But I think it's a moment for Africa at the moment.
Absolutely. And just very quick, and where can we find these books? Do you want to say anything about your publishing?
I think that this is long out of print. You'll probably find it on the internet because books have a second life, don't they? So that one. And Women in War is also out of print, but it's available.
During the nation building, I think they are playing a big role. They're the vanguard of the people of Eritrea. But yes, it's a very important statement. Jenny, what's your future plans? Any plans for the future?
I'd love to go back to Eritrea, and that's why I've talked to Magda about it, and we're planning to go, and because her dad was a photographer.
Yes, good one, yes. He's a very famous photographer.
Yes. So I really want to see his work and meet him.
Fantastic. So we're looking forward to see you in Eritrea.
I hope so.
And we wish you all the best on behalf of EmbassyMedia and all the team here. And thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And I'll leave you with our future programs, and good night.
زي منو لازانا يكبركم فقر سمر